In 2015, Colin Trevorrow's Jurassic World was released as the fourth movie in the series that goes back to Steven Spielberg's Jurassic Park from 1993. See also the same named Rearview. As a prelude to a new trilogy and a kind of sequel, remake, reboot whatsoever, similar to Disney's Star Wars in the same year and Fake Track from 2009. And later also with embarrassingly childish, completely pointless additional titles such as The Fallen Kingdom in 2018 or Dominion in 2022. In between, 5 seasons of a 49-part computer-animated TV series appeared from 2020 to 2022. The 20-minute episodes, 2 minutes were already enough for me, take place before, during and after the events in Jurassic World, which doesn't interest me either, and follow teenagers, which I also don't give a shit about, who visit a camp on the island. The financially extremely successful second trilogy with a total worldwide box office of $4 billion at costs of less than $1 billion, for which Trevorrow also wrote all the so-called screenplays, shows clear parallels to Disney's equally unwatchable Palpatine saga, with a box office of $4.5 billion at total costs of $1.2 billion, in which parts 1 and 3 are also by the same hack. Which in the same year used the same trick of declaring a straight-up remake as a prequel, and they became longer and longer and also, even in the public perception, more stupid, with diminishing returns. In the case of Disney's Diversity Wars, this meant Rise of Palpatine, despite grossing over $1 billion due to its absurdly high production costs, deliberately misreported at the time at $275 million by Disney, in reality almost $500 million, and that's not even including the advertising, most likely even made a loss. So there will probably, hopefully, be no more funny Ray adventures. While the 3 Jurassic Worlds with similar box office made unfortunately still a few bucks with the last one. What a shame. And therefore we have already been threatened with further sequels / trilogies and worse.
Will you be the one tonight? Will you reach me here and try to make
22 years after Jurassic Park, a new huge attraction called Jurassic World for 20,000 visitors has been built there. In addition to the known dinosaurs, it also has a giant Mosasaurus living in the water, and due a supposed lack of interest in real dinosaurs after just 10 years, sure, its own creation called Indominus, Latin for invincible, Rex. A highly dangerous mishmash of T-Rex, raptor, frog, octopus, killer crab, slowworm, anteater, racing snail, duck-billed platypus, sack rat, skunk ape, earless monitor lizard, wagon dragon, just the ones the 5-year-old who came up with this idea could list off the top of his head, which stupidly can also disguise itself like a chameleon, which makes a lot of sense in a zoo where visitors want to see the animals. Here, park director Claire, played by the talentless daughter of famous filmmaker Ron Howard, receives a visit from her nephews, who she leaves to her assistant as she is busy with a demonstration for the owner,
Will you give me wings to fly?
who wants to call the anthologist own Grady as an expert.
Will you take me home across the great divide?
Who is training raptors by making a stop sign with his hand and looking serious, which the head of security / official mustache-twirling movie villain wants to use for military operations. The Mishmash Rex manages to break out quickly due to other spontaneously occurring fantasy abilities. He suddenly can't be detected by thermal cameras and idiot behavior of those in charge. They open the cage door and go in before trying out the tracking system implanted in all the animals, which can only be used from another control room, which Claire frenetically drives to while she's on the phone. Why? So they can radio Brady, but they've been doing that directly the whole time. Why the need for the drive and the cell phone call? That wouldn't even make sense if there had been a total power and radio failure, which there wasn't, but probably there was, namely in the head of the screenwriter during writing and later also during shooting, since it's one and the same dummy. Of course, the owner doesn't evacuate the park. At some point, the Fantasy Rex quickly rips out the tracking device. Sure. but wants a security team to capture him without the use of deadly force. Which of course ends with their death. Now Claire tries to evacuate, which of course doesn't work for reasons. While her annoying nephews have taken off on their own, ignoring all warnings and safety instructions, of course, can be called constantly but can't be warned because that's just the way it is. Being able to leave the visitors area with a park vehicle? Huh? Into the jungle? Is this a South Park episode? Even shopping carts are better secured. And now, of course, are chased by the fanfiction wrecks, unfortunately unsuccessfully. What a shame. In the meantime, the park owner / only pilot on the island gets himself killed for no reason. Oh yes, and the 22,000 visitors wait surprisingly patiently until the very end, even if they are in between attacked and get eaten for new stage directions. And the security manager takes over and sends the untested raptors on their way, who of course join forces with the Incognitus Rex, who now also doesn't seem to mind bullets and grenades. While the villain flies out scientists and equipment to the movie set of the sequel, of course, to safety. But strangely not himself. The Mishmash Rex, thanks to all lucky coincidences ever, including a renegade raptor named Blue who switches sides again, and the T-Rex is just let out of his box for the final, ends up falling victim to the giant fish stick Saurian, who decides exactly at the right moment to go ashore. The Jurassic World Awakens product placement reference park is a sloppy and loveless, almost embarrassingly incompetent staged cliché parade that constantly insults the intelligence of its audience. What were they thinking? Nobody is that simple-minded. And no, that's right. The 1.6 billion box office tell a different story. And simply retells the exact same story of the first part with one-dimensional, poorly cast characters who seem even more artificial and implausible than the god-awful CGI used everywhere. But most of the time it's just boring, without any real tension or, God forbid, horror. It's only scary when it tries to be funny. Those scenes give you really the creeps. And the fact that the really, really bad sequels are still to come. 3 years after the last events, the island's volcano awakens. Although to protect the humans, the government decides against evacuating the dinosaurs living freely there on in search of Blue, which nobody gives a shit about, and Claire, whose job description has changed from supposedly tough businesswoman who shits on dinosaurs to supposedly highly motivated save the dinosaurs activist with 2 followers on a rescue mission to relocate the animals. There they discover that they have been betrayed. The inconspicuous pursuit of Blue, which still doesn't interest anyone, collected by the mercenaries, leads them off the island and into a completely different movie. This old-fashioned science fiction B-horror takes place at night in a spooky mansion, from which Claire got her instructions at the beginning. Her client's partner, but really evil villain of the week, wants to auction off Dr. Evil-like genetically modified animals as military wonder weapons, like a raptor that attacks people marked with a laser gun? So you don't have to do the sweaty and time-consuming pulling the trigger or what? And they also meet the from all the other annoying kids in the series cloned Maisie, a recreated deceased daughter of her client who has already been killed by his villainous partner. When everything goes downhill as usual, the little girl, surrounded exclusively by irresponsible eco-fascists who allow this to happen, is allowed to decide the fate of the caged dinosaurs, doomed to die thanks to a gas leak. and of course sets them free because she feels a connection to them, since a clone and stuff.
Will you give me wings to fly? Will you take me home across the great divide tonight?
And not so much to the countless humans, especially little kids, who will end up in some of their bellies as a result. Cloned plot world Fallen Hope is a kind of remake of Jurassic Park 2, where also eco-fascists wanted the poor dinosaurs to live in contempt of human life, and such a bullshit. The T-Rex is again rushing to the rescue of our heroes. They don't even shy away from blood transfusions between different dinosaur species. Why should any animal have any tactical advantage on a modern day battlefield? It's not the Middle Ages anymore. And for the record, nobody gives a fuck about stupid blue, compared to which the last Jurassic rehash seems downright solid. Garbage expert J.A. Bayonas, who also directed 2 episodes of Amazon's unwatchable Lord of the Woke Rings of Girl Power disaster, the most expensive mega flop of all time with $1 billion sunk so far, which no one has seen. And which they are still burning money on, pulls here directly a Rian Johnson and delivers with the nonsensical release of the dinosaurs onto the world practically the last Jedi of the series, from which franchise destruction power there's no turning back. And similar to the Disney Woke Wars mirror, many people like me doubted at the time that the story could still be told further in any meaningful way. But at least Jeff Goldblum / Ian Malcolm from the old movies was able, by a brief appearance and mumbling confused into his beard, something like "stupidity always finds a way" or so, for 30 seconds of work to grab another paycheck. In 2019 appeared with Battle at Big Rock, an unnecessary 10-minute short as afterthought, in which you can see how a little girl saves her family from a T-Rex or whatever. For years after the last disaster, humans, animals and dinosaurs live peacefully together in Jurassic World 3 Dominion, kind of. As incidents keep happening, villain Louis Dodgens, the guy from the first Jurassic Park, genetic engineering company BioNTech, Biosyn of course, is in the process of relocating the dinosaurs to a protected reserve, in order to conceal its real secret plan to destroy competing crops with genetically modified locusts, probably got vaccinated I guess, so that only Biosyn grain is used. Of course this is immediately noticeable, since people are not blind, not to mention the suspicious huge size of the creatures, which prompts Ellie and Ellen, the leads from the first part, to investigate the company. This is made possible by their buddy Ian, who just happens to work there and now serves as a spy. At the same time, the former dinosaur liberator, don't forget super duper important since cloned, is kidnapped together with Raptor Blue Jr., who is also supposed to be important for reasons. And adoptive parents Claire and Owen complete a round-trip Indiana Jones sequence with exotic places, dinosaur black market, car chases, plane crashes, etc. To fill the almost 3-hour running time felt like 6 with padding. I mean, of course, to free the also important teenager, because she's cloned, you know. In the meantime, she learns that she was actually born normally and that her mother somehow asexually impregnated herself or something, and in the process just cured a made-up deadly disease from which the mother herself died. Which is why Scientist Man now urgently needs her for his locust problem. Because although he invented everything and every animal since part 1, he's obviously not as clever as the chick with the Virgin Mary birth. In short, female Jesus is super duper important and the key to everything. Oh, and Raptor Blue's child is also an asexual birth, so Raptor female Jesus is also super important. We also learn, even though nobody asked and it adds absolutely nothing to the plot, again, just like in the last one, that the new diverse female one-on-one Han Solo knockoff is gay. In the end, all roads lead to the old white man villain, whose indestructible locusts multiply completely unpredictably like locusts, and therefore become a plague. Who could have thought of that? Probably that's the reason why it's written in the Bible for 2000 years. Only to be betrayed by his diverse number 1, who conveniently was secretly working for the good guys all this time, and then casually perish on the run in an unbelievably drawn-out, unnecessarily protracted, seemingly never-ending final, while the old and new leads solve the vermin problem, somehow. But it's actually solved by the diverse Scientist Man, who has been responsible for all the deaths for 30 years. Now also promoted to good guy, since acting with good intentions, with further genetic manipulations. Which are now okay, according to the small C happy ending noise in the background. And it ends exactly at the point where it all began. And nothing has changed or been accomplished since the end of the last movie. So a classic case of an absolute waste of time. Jurassic World 3 Dump Minion can best be summed up with completely uninteresting, woke fanfiction bullshit and puke boring. It's not so much about dinosaurs, but mainly about the stupid locusts. The only bright spot are the few scenes with the original actors from Jurassic Park, which are completely wasted here, like for a Blue Junior rescue mission. Not even the most hardcore Jurassic whatsoever fans are able to defend this cobbled together piece of shit with a serious face. Widely regarded, much like the third Disney Wars, quite rightly as a complete failure in cinematic terms, despite its billion-dollar box office, which doesn't even have a trash entertainment value like its crazy predecessor. For the third one, similar to the Disney The Last Jedi fiasco aftermath, the original offender was brought back to the scene of the crime to supposedly save the next one. In this case, the Colin Trevorrow Snorhead, who then, much like the other hack, Jar Jar Abrams in Rise of Palpatine, who has been allowed to finish off his deadly wounded victim,
mystery box, you know,
also delivered with this pile of dinosaur shit the official artistic declaration of bankruptcy, showing the whole world that no one had any plan here either, least of all him. And that this so-called trilogy was just a fraud from the very beginning, without any added value. I can't wait till this stupid franchise finally also gets extinct. "2025 sees the release of Gareth Edwards' Jurassic World Rebirth, the 7th part of the series with a completely new cast. 5 years after the last Dino Crap trilogy, the Earth's climate proves to be deadly for the formerly extinct animals, because it has become too cold, with the trend getting colder, global warming my ass. which leads to their extinction once again, and they are forced to settle in areas around the equator, which are therefore designated as strictly guarded quarantine travel ban zones. In this heartwarming drama, a pharmaceutical company to develop a cure for heart disease, one of the most common known side effects of the so-called vaccination, needs DNA samples from the largest dinosaurs on land, sea and, very important, in the air, as they have the biggest hearts, as everybody knows. So instead of taking heart and simply getting them from the lab, the hardly dinosaurs were all created artificially anyway. They rather sent a scientist and mercenary persons with a heart of gold of all places to a deserted island where experiments are being carried out on dinosaur crossbreeding and where, according to their own statement, primarily 2 unsightly mutations have been left behind. So where you certainly can't get a pure uncontaminated sample of whatever. Among other things, there is also a so-called Distortus rex, short D-Rex, sneaking around, which years ago, according to the introduction scene, thanks to a Snickers product placement incident in which a carelessly discarded package caused the so-called security system to open all doors instead of locking everything as is usual, especially in biolabs, escaped from the research facility whereupon the island was abandoned. At the same time, in the middle of the restricted quarantine area, which we are constantly told how difficult it is to get to, a father and his 2 children, and seriously the stoned boyfriend of his teenage daughter, presumably the fantasy element here, are carefree on a sailing trip. After their boat is capsized by water dinosaurs, they are rescued by the team, and for the purpose of artificial drama, in order to fill the running time of over 2 hours felt like 4 with something dragged along. After another incident, the family, who are now on their own, are separated from the team, which as soon as they have the samples want to fly out from a certain meeting point. Presumably there were only return flights, no outward flights, since probably fully booked.
You keep on moving me across the great divide tonight.
Jurassic World Afterbirth isn't quite as bad as the last one, since that's hardly possible, but still the opposite of good, so instead of plague, only cancer, and made in its second week already more than 2 times its $180 million budget worldwide back, so it's a financial success. The cliché parade of scenes stolen from the predecessors, of course, references to the original with a computer game plot, task, take 3 samples with decreasing difficulty at each level, in which a family that looks like it's from a completely different movie, Jurassic Park 3 to be precise, tries to escape from the Dino Island, rightly received mostly negative feedback.
Will you take me home across the great divide tonight?
The so-called villain is here once again the representative of the company financing the expedition, which later wants to sell the heart medication, which also has yet to be developed, in order to, God forbid, make a profit. While our so-called heroes, aka the usual socialists and eco-fascists, want the samples which they are paid to obtain to be given away, in the hope that some company will develop something from them and then distribute whatever for free, or what? In the final, where both groups find each other again, the survivors are attacked at the landing site, and the D-Rex from the introduction finally shows up in the last minutes and destroys the chopper, with which the current villain of the week wanted to flee alone with the samples, and also comes to an abrupt end. And they go with the samples into the tunnel system, which leads to a boat in which they escape. With a baby dinosaur, even they established it can only survive in an equatorial climate, but who cares?